If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, join the coven. Find out how at missingwitches.com, or buy our books, New Moon Magic and Missing Witches. And check out our deck of oracles, the Missing Witches deck of oracles.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch.
Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch.
You must be a witch.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Missing Witches podcast. My name is Amy, and today we are celebrating the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox, also known as Imbolc, and the start of Black History Month. So this halfway point between the winter solstice and spring equinox is the perfect time to look backwards and forwards. What did we learn? And what can we do differently as we start planning the planting of new seeds, literal and metaphorical? And as I said, February 1st also kicks off Black History Month. And these two dates combined provide the perfect opportunity for us to celebrate where we're going and learn from where we've been. Last year, we lost a beloved poet, Nikki Giovanni. So we're taking this year's prompt from one of her poems, Revolutionary Dreams. Over the past couple years, especially, there's been a lot of rhetoric around the world, around the word revolution and around the world. Slip of the tongue, but both work. Both political and personal. So I've gathered this panel of brilliant witches together today to ask, what is your revolutionary dream? What does your revolution look like? How do you imagine a functional future? And who are your heroes of revolutionary work? I'm so excited to welcome back these creators of future Black history and present. Authors, artists, astrologers, scholars, teachers, magic makers. Lilith Dorsey, Loli Moon, Christina Cleveland, Zoe Flowers, Thea Anderson, and the brilliant Dr. Beverly, all brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about your revolutionary dreams. And let's start with Dr. Beverly. I think you might want to engage us with some poetry from Nikki Giovanni before we dive into our conversation.
I do. I have always seen Professor Giovanni as a revolutionary, as one of my greatest role models. I discovered her when I was in college. And I discovered this book. This is my first book by her. You can see it's in pieces. It's My House, and it's called My House. Nikki Giovanni. It compiles a series of some of her earliest poetry. Most of these poems come from the 70s. This one that I'm going to read, that I think is particularly appropriate, is from January 7, 1972. And this book of poetry was released in 83, and I bought it new, and it's not new anymore. So I read this poem in honor of Nikki Giovanni, and it's called When I Die. When I die, I hope no one who's ever hurt me cries. And if they cry, I hope their eyes fall out and a million maggots that have made up their brains crawl from the empty holes and devour the flesh that covered the evil that passed itself off as a person that I probably tried to love. When I die, I hope every worker in the National Security Council, the Interpol, the FBI, CIA Foundation for the Development of Black Women gets an extra bonus and maybe takes one day off and maybe even asks why they didn't work as hard for us as they did them. But it always seems to be that way. Please don't let them read Nikki Rosa. Maybe just let some Black woman who called herself my friend go around and collect each and every book, and let some Black man who said it was negative of me to want him to be a man collect every picture and poster and let them burn. Throw acid on them, shit on them, as they did me while I tried to live. And as soon as I die, I hope everyone who loved me learns the meaning of my death, which is a simple lesson. Don't do what you do very well, and enjoy it. It scares white folks and makes Black ones truly mad. But I do hope someone tells my son his mother liked little old ladies with their blue dresses and hats and gloves, that sitting by the window to watch the dawn come up is valid, that smiling at an old man and petting a dog don't detract from manhood. Do somebody please tell him I knew all along that what would be will be, but I wanted to be a new person. And my rebirth was stifled not by the master, but by the slave. And if ever I touched a life, I hope that life knows that I know that touching was and still is and will always be the true revolution.
Brilliant. An
Oh,
excellent
boy.
choice. Thank you, Dr. Beverly. Do you want to tell our listeners who maybe have missed you on the podcast in the past a little bit about who you are?
Thank you very much. My name is Beverly Smith. I'm known in some circles as Dr. Beverly because I am a root worker in the hoodoo tradition. Hoodoo is not voodoo, and many people do know that, but some people still ask. So just quickly, voodoo is an initiatory religion that was created and is practiced in Haiti and and there, of course, there are voodoo practitioners in America and elsewhere, but it originated in Haiti. Hoodoo takes the ancestral memories that the captives brought with them to the New World, and it is herbal magical lore. It's the power and the energetics of herbs in manifestation. And the captives were brought to the New World. They learned to work with the plants that were there. Some of the plants they recognized from home. Some of the plants they had to be taught how to use it. They were helped in many ways by some of the local native people. And together they devised this system of hoodoo, which is overwhelmingly African American. The vast practitioners of hoodoo are Black Christians. I am not a Christian. I was, however, raised in the Christian faith. And so I understand that in all manifestation, all of us who are energetic workers, all of us who perhaps believe in manifestation, some people call it magic, some people call it conjuring. However you want to call it, we know that you just don't throw a couple herbs in a mojo bag and call it magic. You have to bring it. You have to manifest it. You have to work with those energies and bring it forth. And as well as many who were raised in the Black Christian traditions, I understand that calling upon the name of Jesus. I get that. I understand how powerful that is to my own parents, my own grandparents, and those who came before me. So I approach hoodoo in a different way, using a different source for my power, because I've come to understand that when I'm aligned with the powers of the universe, I am God. When I am backed by my ancestors, I understand that I am God. If I am a child of God slash goddess, then I am a young God, young goddess in the making. And that is that's the fountain of power for which I fuel my manifestations. But I am a root worker, and root workers are known to prescribe different roots for your conditions. Hoodoo is about practical. Hoodoo is about how do I pay my rent this month? How do I keep my man from straying? How do I keep my kids safe? How do I continue to grow and to live in this world that in many ways wants to thwart me? So we provide different prescriptions of different herbal combinations for baths, for tinctures, for mojo bags. Oh, the list goes on and on. And we believe that those herbs, through their innate divine given power, bring the manifestation that we seek. So in a nutshell, that's me.
Just, a god on earth.
Oh,
Speaking of gods or God, author of God is a Black woman. That's right, there it is. Christina Cleveland. Tell us a bit about who you are, and then please tell us about the revolutionary dream of restorative justice and the Black Madonna. Hi.
Hi. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Um, can I go backwards? Can I tell the dream first and then share who I am?
Backwards, forwards, around the bend.
That feels more alive. So my revolutionary dream is for ease. I want a revolution that comes without us wearing ourselves out. I dream of a revolution that is, like Dr. Beverly said, already the force that's at play. We're just dropping into it and receiving and flowing. I've been living in 1790s Haiti for the last 6 months because I've been learning all about how the Black Madonna was a part of the Haitian Revolution and empowered it. And one of the things that's really coming up for me is so many people who are the leaders of that revolution, whether they are household names or not, were given they were given names from the Black Madonna, personal names, like nicknames, names of endearment. And I say given, but they really took them. They knew that was their birthright. And oftentimes they would strategize. And then when people would say, well, how do you know we're supposed to do this or that? In terms of military strategy, they'd be like, well, the Black Madonna told me it. I'm like her godson. So, this is, just that sense of ownership and being owned, but with consent. And so I want everyone to have nicknames from the divine. I want everyone to know that they're sought after and cherished and called, and that the work that they're doing in the revolution is divinely ordained and supported and innervated. And I want there to be lots and lots and lots of rest, particularly for people who identify as women, and non-binary folks, because we're the ones who are the mules behind the revolution, yet we rarely ever get the credit. So that's my dream. And a lot of my dreams come from stories about the Black Madonna. And so right now I'm really just living in the energy of Our Lady of Fuck Around and Find Out, the Black Madonna of Paris, who goes around and takes abusers and handles them on behalf of the people who have been abused. I'm thinking a lot about She Who Cherishes Our Hot Mess, the Black Madonna of Vichy, France, who doesn't need us to have all the answers or do everything perfectly. We get to be on a learning curve even as we resist. It's okay to acknowledge that we aren't like didn't walk out of the womb quoting Nikki Giovanni. Like we're on a journey ourselves, we're awakening ourselves, and it's okay. And I'm also thinking a lot about Our Lady of the Side Eye, the Black Madonna of this little tiny region of France, who has been hearing particularly Black women's cries in the face of colonialism for 900 years now. So, calling on these archetypes to guide and to bring us into flow. So that's me. I spent a lot of time thinking about what the Black Madonna is up to, particularly in the African diaspora. And I'm writing a lot about her now in Cuba, Haiti, and Brazil. So lots of good time. And she's an Orisha too. So they're all the things.
Thank you so much for being here,
Yeah.
Christina, and bringing that energy of ease.
Mm.
Everyone is so, and again, that's kind of this idea of like the rhetoric of revolution. People are talking a lot of shit about revolution, but like what's the practical route to revolution,
Mm-hmm.
and to build rest and ease into that, I think is the one thing that's going to make a sustainable revolution, right? And
Yeah, I
Our
mean, I
Lady of
feel like
Side
too.
Eye.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I feel like the whole point of colonialism is to just wear us out, just have us turning, like running around in circles, chasing our tails. And there's literally a story about a Black Madonna in Belgium who, when a village was under siege by a colonial enemy, um, she walked out of the church in the village to the ramparts around the walls of the city and was catching cannonballs with her hand. And that idea of there is a divine being that is battling with us and for us, and so how can we just like get and like some of the cannonballs were just like dropping into the folds of her dress. She's just catching them all while breastfeeding her child at the same time. Like she's literally a Virgo lactant, so like she's one of the two Black Madonnas where her boob is out and she is breastfeeding, and she's also catching cannonballs. And so like how do I take that energy? Like how do I do revolutionary acts from that space of there's already the universe is already catching cannonballs. How do I just get into that rather than think I have to be up there on the ramparts all by myself, just like a martyr? And for who? And so, yeah, those stories are powerful. They're, these like spiritual imagination is just so powerful. So.
And I want to thank you too for giving me in a past conversation that we had, and it's in your book about this, like how your God or the goddess or whatever you prefer is welcoming of our sacred mess. And I have said that to myself so many times when I'm in that place of like the universe accepts my sacred mess. And something else that really stuck with me, Lolly Moon, when you were on the show before, you said that part of how you use astrology is to discover your role, or how we can use astrology is to discover our role in the revolution. And I keep that with me too, because, we're not all going to be on the ramparts. Some of us are going to be washing the dishes. The revolution will not be televised, as Gil Scott Heron said, but it will be babysat. It will be fed, all of these things. So, Lolly Moon, how are you? Who are you today? What's your revolutionary dream?
Oh my gosh. I am Loli Moon going through her Saturn return. So Loli Moon's been going through intense transformations and all types of radical revolutionary things. Everything Christina shared about the Black Madonna really just made my heart so warm because for the past year and a half, I have been building a shrine to the Black Madonna and have been so attracted to just her energy and just really embracing all of the warmth and protection she has been bringing me. So My revolution when I first came to Missing Witches was very hot, snap, crackle, pop, was the energy I was bringing to the table. And, I am still her. There is still that sharpening of the machetes, but my understanding of the revolution has shifted a lot as well because so much has happened too. So I am still a natural mystic. I am still offering all the astrology, astro tea. I am still guiding mystics, witches, healers all over to empower themselves with their own astrology, knowing how to read charts, not just their own chart and studying, but understanding how to work with the planetary hours and being really intentional when communicating with the universe and how working with the planetary hours can really magnify that. I believe that the more intentions and prayer we put out into the universe, the stronger we are making our auric field. And so if you follow planetary hours, there's at least 5 hours in the day dedicated to that particular planet that rules that day. So if you align your intentions and prayers with those hours, you are really working some serious magic. So my revolutionary dream now looks like a regulated nervous system for the mystics, the witches, all people of color. My revolution looks like freedom of pollution that is, this capitalistic, patriarchal, and also post-apocalyptic world that we are in. My revolution now looks like slow mornings and gentle evenings. And it's a timeline where I completely own my time and where the collective, we completely own our time. And we can spend that time freely, with our community, building, rebuilding, nurturing. The revolution won't always be televised, but it will be nurtured, and it will transcend and ascend. And that's how it's going to make it through to the end. And that's all it's going to be. And more importantly, my revolution looks like the unconditional love of all the great mothers. And that's where I'm sitting right now.
Thank you so much for coming today, Loli. It's really great to see you.
I'm so happy to be here. I actually was told there was a witch that connected with me last month, and they had mentioned that I was in y'all's book. You all quoted for a new moon, and I was like, oh my goodness. And it was exactly what we were talking about the revolution and empowering others to know, like, listen, even just doing this with this skill, this obsession of astrology and whatever, like you can use that to really, really empower yourself. It goes beyond as I call it, the fast food astrology.
Right. Like I'm a Capricorn, so I'm always late. Like,
Yeah. Oh, I'm
okay,
a
that's fine.
Capricorn. I wear all black and I'm kind of, you know, witchy with a capital B. Like, okay. And you also are ruled by Saturn. You can also use a scythe. You can also.
And Thea Anderson, your approach is a bit to astrology is a bit different too. You use astrology to inform your study of history. So, hi, Thea Anderson. Amazing. So good to see you. Tell us, who are you today and what is your revolutionary dream?
Hmm. Hi. First of all, hi witches. Hi Loli. I love when there's another astrologer on here. It gives me like goosebumps. Happy Saturn return.
Thank you.
Um, Dr. Beverly, Christina, like everybody has shared such beautiful wisdom. I think the dream that I have really feels like our creative imagination, right? That we all get to participate in this shared consciousness. And for me, that looks like sometimes going back into history, sometimes waking up early to write fiction, sometimes doing readings with people. The sense of being closer to presence or the ability to sort of surrender into presence. Um, I've got so many books next to me. Also, too, there's this theme of time, right? Like I've got a book on time blocking, time wars, focus, like really being intentional about where I give my time and my attention. Attention is currency. And if it is standing, looking on the outside, waiting for something to happen in some future, then I can never be with what is. Um, I feel like blessed that we get to participate in this, and it's also real as shit. And I think both of those, that's like where the knife is, right? Like it's life or death, quite literally, but it's also play and it's also joy. And I think what I find what feels revolutionary is to remember that and to bring that into every space, whether or not it feels like it's needed or called for or appropriate. I love this idea of goddess of our sacred mess or virgin or sacred mess, like the ability to our humanness is actually the revolution, right? That we get to put our humanness in it, and that capitalism and patriarchy and I gotta make money and I gotta hustle and I gotta be Black excellence, which was a lie. You can just be you. Um, that we can take it all back. We can take our time back. We can take our attention back, and we can be strategic as hell and also deeply loving and caring and community focused. And I'm just reminded of it every time I step into a space like this, that this is what the real is. And I'm grateful to be able to recognize that. Um, I was looking at Giovanni's chart while Dr. Beverly were reading that quote, and Nikki had Moon conjunct Pluto, and I love this idea about when I die, right? Moon conjunct Lord of the Underworld. When I die, you better come correct. And if you're crying, you need to have shown up for me in my life in this kind of way. So I just wanted to also put that little gem here because I was like, oh yes, speak.
Thank you, Thea. That is a gem. Also, coming correct is Lilith Dorsey. Coming correct as always. Hi, Lilith. It's so great to be in a circle with you again and to see you again. How are you? Who are you? What is your revolutionary dream?
Oh my gosh, I have so many revolutionary dreams. And I want to thank you for letting me be here with all these amazing people today. There's so much wisdom. And I think my revolutionary dream is knowledge. I'm not sure how many people listening or how many of you know me, but I am Lilith, and I don't mean that in an arrogant, whatever kind of way. My parents named me Lilith, so I suppose there was always this kind of valorization of the sacred feminine, and a sacred feminine that's not white. I have a friend that runs the Not White Collective, so I'm very happy to be not white and to honor that in myself every day. And I think that, I am an author. I just published my 8th book. I'm a scholar. I went to school for all of these things. I went to NYU right after Spike Lee left. And I heard a young Black man say once, it was so hard to be a Black man at NYU 10 years ago. And everybody in the audience is pointing to me because when I started in 1987, there was nobody there that looked like me. And there was nobody there that wanted to hear me. And that's pretty much, I think, antithetical to what we need for the revolution, right? People keep saying, listen to Black women, and I wouldn't be where I was today without Black women. If I have a revolutionary shero, it's Zora Neale Hurston. I heard Christina talking about us being the mule. She was the first woman who said we were the mule of the world, and we are. There's so many burdens. There's so many. I love that image of the breastfeeding and catching cannonballs, because let me tell you, I breastfed and caught cannonballs for a very long time, and it wasn't easy, and I continue to do it. So my revolution for me personally is with knowledge. I'm very honored of all the things I've done, except for my girls. The thing I'm most happy about, and I think really makes a difference, is my community garden here in New Orleans. I am a voodoo priestess, not a hoodoo priestess, Dr. Beverly. I also have initiations in Haitian Vodou and Santo. And for me, just honoring the land and honoring what we got from the land, our ancestors who worked that land, all the grandmothers that we forgot that had to work that land to provide. And even if we don't know how to do it now, we know that it was done for us. And I think that this concept that we can have the knowledge of really how to take care of ourselves on a deep level to nourish not just our body, but our soul and our mind and our community, that's where the seed of the revolution is going to be. And for me, it's going to be a chocolate revolution because that's what we need.
Little chocolate city, a little parliament funkadelic.
Yeah.
I think Lilith, I think like the breadth of your educational background, and you're so prolific. I think that's like so much a part of your revolutionary work is just to keep producing films and books. You said Tarot Every Which Way, your latest book is your eighth book.
Yeah.
Like, thank you.
Oh.
Thank you for just continuing. And I'm pointing to one of Zoe Flowers's books here, the poet laureate of the Missing Witches Coven, as we call her sometimes. Hi, Zoe Flowers. How
Hey.
are you? Who are you? Tell me about your revolutionary dream.
Yeah, I'm gonna mix things up too, like somebody else did. So I wanted to do a little poll for this conversation. And the first thing I got was the Wheel of Fortune, which I think is very apropos to this conversation, I think, right? Like changes and fated events and destiny and all of those things feels very real to me. And I think I want to, yeah, this revolutionary dream, this revolutionary reality, I want to say that I'm co-creating. Also got the King of Swords. So that to me feels like just being very much in charge of my own ideas, my thoughts, and things like that. Eight of Wands, communication coming in quickly from spirit and then ending with justice. So I feel that that is the revolutionary dream reality that I'm attempting to live into. I feel like for me personally, this is super accurate, even though sometimes it feels like the communication is coming slower than I want. Um, so yeah, the thing that I've been musing on, I had a reading, an ancestral reading this weekend with the amazing medium out of New Orleans, and my ancestors came through and said they just want me to live and be. So I was like, check. That's what I'm gonna attempt to do. And Amy, we've been having this conversation about joy and like my right to joy. I've left the United States for a while. Don't want to say too much on the phone, but I'm not in the States, right? And so I'm experiencing a sense of peace, and I've had feelings about that, like. Am I allowed to have joy? Am I allowed to have peace while so many other things have been happening? And so when I'm thinking about my ancestors coming through and saying, we just want you to be, we just want you to live, and that's what you need to be showing, and that's what you need to be working with people on. Um, that's in the forefront of my mind. And I feel like the work that I've been doing with people, whether it's tarot or candle magic or Loli, you're talking about planetary hours, like speaking my language, all of those things at first. I was teaching as a response to capitalism, and I would say that this is a response to capitalism, this is a response to this is a response to that. And lately I've been like, maybe I need to change that. Like, maybe I need to change this response to white supremacy all the time and teach it to people in a different way. Maybe it's just about them being, and maybe us being is a revolutionary because I do believe they want us to stay tired, powerless all the time, joyless,
Mhm.
woeful. Um, so yeah, those are the things I'm kind of musing on. As I sit here and it just keeps snowing.
Can I
So,
comment on that too,
yes,
Zoe?
please.
Because That really resonates with me so much. I think we have a right to not just joy, but we have a right to self-determination that's not a response to colonialism. We have a right to imagine outside of that entire construct. And I was recently listening to a lecture by Dr. Bayo Komolafe, who some of you all might know is a philosopher and activist. And he was talking about how like the term liberation is not even a useful term because it's too legible to the plantation. The plantation understands what liberation is. It's the opposite of the plantation. And so he said, our ancestors went into fugitivity. They didn't go into liberation. Like what they went into wasn't even legible to the plantation. It was a whole other thing. And I was listening to that doing yoga. And of course, my new book is called Our Lady of Liberation. So I'm like, dang it. But he's, but I think we can have both and, right? Because like, but I appreciate his point, right? That, we're being invited. Our ancestors had to move into an unknown. It wasn't what they really moved into was an unknown. It was not understandable or legible to the plantation and we get to move into that too. And I think that's why Harriet Tubman had that North Star. That's all she had. She said, somehow, some way we're going to make it, but we don't even know what freedom is. We don't even know. I think because freedom and liberation are beyond what we even can imagine. That's how much our ancestors want us to not just survive, but thrive. They have more for us than we can even understand, more than we can even hope for. And so I love the idea of like, yeah, let's not just respond to capitalism or colonialism or patriarchy or white supremacy or whatever. That's, first of all, boring, super boring, because patriarchy and white supremacy are so predictable. You always know exactly what they're going to do. But also, what does it mean for us to exist on our terms?
Yeah, I don't know yet.
But I think that's where the magic is in the conversations that we're having about that.
Yeah.
And how do we even start to step out of that? Because I'm so trained as an academic to, if you're going to do something that's not in favor of the plantation, at least make it legible to the plantation. That's how you sell books. That's how you get people to come to your things, is to say, this is healing from capitalism, because that's what people understand.
Right.
And if you give a vague, like, come thrive with me, people don't sign up. Because they don't know what that means. So it's like we have to paint the picture for them.
Yeah.
And that's where conjuring comes in, because it's just, okay, I'm not an actual visual artist, but let me just brush, guide me. Spirit, guide me through this brush, because I don't even know. I'm so captive to the plantation in so many ways, despite all the work that I've done to get ready to deprogram. So
yeah, and maybe that's where this Eight of Wands is coming from as you're talking. Like maybe it's coming down in the
I
city.
love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Zoe and I have talked a lot about, I'm encouraging Zoe to enter her villain era. And I think for, women and femmes, but especially Black women and femmes, the villain era looks like my joy is more important to me than your comfort. Um, and I kind of want to return to Dr. Beverly about this, because we have had a couple conversations about the kind of ethics of magic. And I know you've told me that you work with both hands. I have spoken to so many people who are becoming increasingly radicalized, witches who are becoming increasingly radicalized by the politics of their nation, the world, all of that. And for the first time in their lives are starting to think about hexing, are starting to think about working with both hands. And we've been talking about this revolution of joy and ease, but what about laying a fucking villain hex?
Wow. I've got to say that I've become conflicted especially over in this last year. The day after election day, I was laid up in bed because I was gutted. I was so blown away to learn that Black women were the only demographic that voted for this current mess in majority numbers. They're the only demographic who refused to do that. The only demographic. And so I feel very alone and very isolated. Now, since the election, I've been able to process, to get my thought processes together and think of where I'm coming from. Now, I have always been a two-handed worker. I believe that this whole do no harm theory is really just to control people. If you are ethical, if you can walk into your home at the end of the night with pride, with your head held up, knowing that before God, whoever your God is, before God and your ancestors, you have been true to yourself, you've been true to your own sense of integrity, been true to your own ethics, then you will be comfortable dealing with a situation when it needs to be dealt with. All right. I have no problem blessing. I have no problem helping. I have no problem manifesting good to come to someone. However, if they deserve it, I have no problems with laying a trick upon them about, because it's called fuck around and find out. So I have no problem with that. How I am evolving is I'm beginning to feel as my sisters here today are feeling. I wanted to bring the sword, and I wanted to bring the lightning, and I wanted to bring the heavy axe of justice down on all of these bastards. But I'm beginning to understand that revolution can come from within, that revolution can be quiet, that revolution can be a sense of self that we give to those who come behind us. And everyone keeps using the word joy. Yes, 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 yes. Let's reach for the joy. Because even if you, as I do, believe in reincarnation, what I do understand is that when I am in this incarnation, this is the one that matters. This is the one that matters. I have to bring joy, and I have to bring truth. I have to be true to myself. I have to walk in my own truth. Liberation is to make free. We need to be free to feel ourselves. We need to be free to nurture our communities in the way that we want to nurture them. Someone earlier brought up rest. Oh my goodness. There is a TED Talk by Dr. Sandra. Oh my goodness. I believe she's Sandra Smith. Sandra Smith. And it's called Rest is Revolution. Rest is Revolution. And she talks about how, and I believe Christina mentioned this, they want us tired. They want us exhausted. They want us, doing what we need to do while fighting the system. I mean, they want us to burn candles at both ends, both figuratively and literally. We need to rest. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to nurture our elders. We need to raise up our children with a real sense of purpose, and a sense of purpose that we don't always fight against the man. that sometimes it's not worth it. I'm looking at this situation that we're dealing with today, and I'm realizing that a lot of damage can be done in the next 4 years. I'm just as shocked and dismayed and as heartbroken as everyone else that reproductive rights have been put on the chopping block. I can see voting rights going on the chopping block next. I can see all of this happening. And while I still fervently believe in change, I just don't know if revolution as I have envisioned it in the past is even sensible anymore. I'm beginning to come to the conclusion that all of us who are adversely affected by what is going on right now, all of us who are adversely affected need to take care of ourselves and take care of each other. We need to dig deep and ask ourselves, what are our priorities right now? Especially, what are our priorities in making it through the next several years? Because things are going to get bad. I cannot predict in which ways they're going to go sideways, but things are going to get gnarly. And we need to have a strong foundation in what our priorities are, in what we love and what we cherish and what we want to bring forward. And I think that's really important. And I think we have to guard our peace. I think we have to guard our tranquility. I think we have to guard our mental health. And I think all of that comes into knowing what our boundaries are, knowing what our priorities are, and knowing what our abilities are, and knowing how far we can take those things. Let's not burn ourselves out anymore. Let's not, what did Malcolm X say? Malcolm X said something to the effect, it's not going to be a direct quote, but something to the effect of, the Black woman is the least respected person in America. He may have said she's the most disrespected person in America. Same difference. We as Black women are perceived. We are perceived as being the bottom of the rung. All right? I don't care what else they say about anything else. That is our perception. When you look at the dog whistles around this last election, how people actually could fix their mouth to say that one candidate had a low IQ. I don't care what you think of that candidate, what you may have thought of that candidate, or how you voted. The point is, California has one of the toughest law board tests in the country. And people say, oh, affirmative action this and affirmative action that. Affirmative action might get you into that program. Affirmative action doesn't take the tests for you. Okay. And so I know I'm hearing all of the dog whistles. I'm seeing all the bad old days slipping back. All right. I'm old enough to remember the tail end of the really bad old days. I'm that last group of kids that was forcibly bused. And I remember how shitty those days were. Well, I can see us sliding back into some of that. So right now, revolution for us, for Black people, for people who are oppressed right now, revolution should look like self-care. Revolution should look like, do what you need to do to get enough to eat, to get enough rest, to know how to say no, to know how to stand up and be accountable when you say yes. And remember, we have to honor our elders, we have to consult our ancestors, and we have to raise up the next generation to understand where we have come from is important, where we are going is important, but let's try to live more now in this time, in the present. That's my New Year's resolution, man. I'm going to take it day by day.
And day by day, I want to ask the astrologers, because Dr. Beverly, you talked about reassessing your priorities. Astrologers, based on the 2025 charts, tell me, what do you think that the priorities should be?
Thea, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll stumble forward is how you
Okay.
know what I'm about to say. So I think I have thought a lot about this year, and the priorities, if I were like to huddle up all my activist friends and we got to be strategic, I'd be like, say, like, protect yourself from the assault on your senses. So, a couple of things. We have Pluto now in Aquarius. Second half of the year, Uranus will dip into Gemini. So we've got like an air sign configuration. And that's a scramble of data, information, hot takes, points of view. Let's dismantle 12 laws in 1.5 days. That's all of that kind of frenetic energy coming through. I was reading an article, by the way, yesterday on New York Times that said that this tactic is also, Stephen Miller, who was chief of staff for Trump, said this is called flood the zone tactic. And so what I'm thinking about, what it means that we have people in the highest office of our country deliberately trying to flood the zone, and what it means to get to higher ground. That's what I've been thinking about recently. And higher ground might be the sort of strategy that what I would want people to know. Find the thing for the first half of the year, as we're in a Mars retrograde, we go through Venus retrograde, then we've got eclipse season. It is like things are going to be revealed. We know eclipses throughout history have been huge points of revelation, like, oh shit, I didn't know that was lurking behind that in that dark corner, and now it's here. So things will be revealed, things will have to be contended with, reckoned with. I feel like it's like have the thing that prevents your senses from always being pulled in many different directions. And then part two of the year, especially summer to the fall, when we have these big outer planetary shifts, that the strategy there is to really align yourself with like sort of a new, whatever we did 4 years ago, 10 years ago, we're doing way different now. We're doing outer planets into fire and air signs. And so there's a much more, I like this idea of not responding to capitalism, which would be more of an earth-water configuration, that there's an active a way of putting our stake in the ground, daring to imagine something new and following that. Um, as a collective, as a community. So if people want to flood our zones with all this kind of nonsense, that we're okay, that we're not doing that game because that's an old game, and where we said it's quite boring, and so that we could do something new and different. Um, and I feel like that's the second half of 2025. Lily.
I think that the fact that we started this year as a Mars year, in Mars in Cancer, right? Mars in its fall, there's this very large theme of this attack on, reproductive health, of course, the divine feminine in various ways, mothers, children, the vulnerable of society. And I think that with Mars in Cancer in its fall, as we are in this retrograde season, there's a lot of sorrow and mourning that needs to happen still within the collective, and a lot of accepting of like, this is what it is. Okay, so take your time digesting it, but digest it and sober up, because we have to roll up our sleeves as we move further, as you said, into the summer months and beyond, because as we go into the summer months, as we know, we have Neptune moving into Aries and we have Saturn moving into Aries in May. And Neptune and Aries, from a historical standpoint, brings on ideas of, the Civil War, right? And so, as you're saying, there is going to be a reactionary thing. And I almost feel like it's like an avalanche where the snowball is like growing as it continues to fall down a hill and eventually just hits and it just bursts into 1,000 little pieces. So I think to kind of prepare ourselves, there needs to be this time of accepting and mourning and releasing and letting go. And especially as we go into Pisces season, we have the lunar eclipse in Virgo, and that's going to be interesting, right? And 2 weeks later, boom, Neptune in Aries. So there's going to be a lot of exposure and a lot of truths coming out, but there needs to be, I think, still some acceptance of what is still going on and allowing us to be upset and be angry and then shake it out so we can actually start to really strategize when Mars is direct, when Mars goes into Leo, and start to really move accordingly. I think with Neptune and Saturn in Aries for a little bit, there's going to be a lot of kind of pulling back from the community of individualism really being really high, and well, you should have been more prepared. I can't help you, sorry, and a lot of that going on. So I'm hoping that with the South Node in Virgo, there is going to be a wave of inspiration that comes through where there is a more focus on not being so responsive, not being so caught up in the tides of the emotions, and being grounded in the knowledge that you have, the knowledge that you don't have, and expanding that with your community overall. So yeah, I think the first step is accepting and mourning and releasing. And then once you can clear that out, then we can actually move forward.
And this is the perfect time of year for that, right? Like I was talking about this halfway point between winter solstice and spring equinox, where we're not, I mean, at least where I am, there's 3 feet of snow. So I'm not planting any seeds right now. It can't be done. So I really need to not do that reactionary thing that we're talking about of like, that capitalist brainwashing urgency of like, don't think, just go and but this is that moment of the year where we can take some time to strategize. Like several of you have used this word, strategize. And I think that that's so important. We're so reactionary now. Social media doesn't help. Obviously, the state of the world isn't helping, but we need to do that like mourning, grieving, thinking, learning from the past, and then applying that to how we strategize creating our next priorities, right? Yeah. I also want to talk to Lilith and Zoe. You're both filmmakers. And I want to know personally, for me, what is the role of creativity in our strategies or in our revolutionary dreams? Lilith, can you start?
Sure, I'll start. And I think I actually even have a transition. So much of what everybody's been talking about to me has to be this kind of transformation. You know, and my first big documentary was on trance, TRANCE formation, so that there's a way in which we can enter into this liminal, powerful, initiatory, transformational state that gets us to where we need to be, you know. And a lot of what I heard these lovely people on the panel talking about was that moment where we imagine things better than they can possibly be, you know. And for us in Haitian Vodou, that's the domain primarily of Aida Wedo, which is the serpent in the rainbow story that everybody knows. So we have this transformation from being enslaved and taken from Africa in the New World and blossoming into this rainbow of something different here, for better, worse, all these things that came with it. It really was a rainbow, because we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it today. As much as we don't want to have lived through the storm, we did live through that storm. And through our creativity, we can come together now. And through these things that we didn't necessarily maybe have access to before, we can get our creative works out there. And that's how people learn, really. Like, as much as I want to, you know, when my grandmother's time, you get hit with the ruler. This is the story she used to tell me, right? You don't know it. Boom, boom. But that to me is never how I learned. And I don't think that's how most people learn. Most people learn by being able to see the beauty and also being able to believe it. And if we don't take time to heal our pain, if we don't take time to deal with all these traumas and all these transformations and changes that are going on, we're not going to be able to believe that there's a rainbow coming tomorrow. And that's what I think is the most important thing. So any kind of creative acts we can do, that also is an act of revolution, right? Because we're we're choosing not to focus on, oh my gosh, this horrible thing that's happening, and make something beautiful that helps us all heal and move forward and be able to act in a positive way.
And in your latest book, Tarot Every Which Way, you mention mysticism and the power of the extreme.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? And then Zoe, if you can jump in with your take on creativity as a way to strategize priority.
I mean, I think if I have a theory about magic or about revolution or about filmmaking, it really does sort of embrace this shock value. You know, I'm a big fan of Jodorowsky. I'm a big fan. We just did a tribute episode on my show for David Lynch. These things that are so shocking that we can't get there any other way. And my favorite piece from Jodorowsky, he talks about when you go to an interview or something that's difficult, you should put raw meat in your pocket because that's going to freak you out and shock you into a different space. So you're not going to be thinking about, oh, I'm so nervous, I have meat in my pocket. But he says, if you don't want to put meat in your pocket, you could use lavender, which I thought was hilarious, right? Like, okay, maybe I don't want this nasty bloody meat. I'll have some nice scented smelling lavender. But there's this way in which we're shocking ourselves out of our comfort zone, again, because that's where the magic happens. That's where the transformation happens. So for me, the life is going to shock you anyway. And I apologize to my sister if she's watching this, because I used to hide in the closet and jump out and go, expect the unexpected. Because this is what I thought was life training, but there's so much in life that's unexpected. So I thought if I could teach my little sister something that would be good, you don't know, we grew up in New York City. You don't know what's around that street corner. You don't know what's going to pop out at you. You know, we grew up with a lot of mentally ill people. You don't know what's coming at you. So if you're able to react in that moment, that's going to be helpful to you. And I think that's also the plan about Jodorowsky's strategy for magic. If you don't know what's coming, you'll be able to react better. So that's pretty much the explanation of that.
Mm-hmm. So Amy, you were saying the role of creativity and strategy. That's what you're saying. I'm still stuck on the astrology conversation. I just want to put into the cauldron for people who do rituals, creating rituals around the things that Loli and Thea were saying, specifically this around sorrow, around grieving, rituals for that in this beginning part of the year, and then other rituals specifically to help strategize, perhaps herbs for clarity and things like that in the second part of the year. And perhaps that's a part of creativity. Perhaps that's about responding to the unexpected, to being flexible. I think when I think about film, one of the things that I've come to realize is film is one of the most successful means of propaganda that we've had, and the ways that we have been indoctrinated into ways of thinking about who's the other, who's the good, who's the bad. This is what relationships look like. This is what war looks like. All of these things. And so I think as a writer, for me, it's about telling new stories, right? Like I want to reject being a mule. Like I don't ever want anybody to say that about me again. I don't ever want to like be like I'm unprotected. I'm this, I'm that. Like for me, I want to create new stories, new quotes, new conversations. And maybe there's like some alchemy in that. Um, Putting our alchemy on film, putting our rituals on film. Maybe that's something that we're gonna have to do, like, and pass them around covertly. Um, Maybe we're gonna have to put rituals on film and pass them around to people. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I think some things should be covert, and I think some things should be overt. So I think as filmmakers and as creatives, understanding like in so many ways, we're writing things into reality. I had this idea a long time ago about this woman, and women's rights were stricken down and people had to come to her to do all these things. And I didn't write it because I was like, I don't want to write this into reality. Now I'm like, oh shit, maybe that was a download, right? And there's been so many stories like that in history. So it's like, on the one hand, I'm glad these things were written so people can be like, oh yeah, parable of the sower. Like, yes, obviously. We can act accordingly. So I just think that yeah, we can write things into reality, and we can reframe conversations, and we can film our rituals, and we can share them, create new languages. We can do all that as creatives.
I want to ask about downloads, and I guess I'll open it to everyone. Did anyone receive any kind of download? Like, this is a message that needs to come out in this conversation today? And maybe I'll be even a little more specific to say that, Audre Lorde said it was a waste of time to talk to white women about racism because of I'm saying our as a white woman, our defensiveness. Um, what is a message that's coming through for you, assuming that white women are not listening with defensiveness, but instead with an openness, with a porousness to what you might have to say?
I can go.
Yeah.
But this So I want to say a couple things. One, for people of color to understand, and somebody had said this, like when we're engaging in these conversations with white people, we're also engaging with their like DNA and their ancestors. And so we're not always fighting the person in front of us. We're also fighting like their own DNA. So I think that's interesting. And then the other thing I want to say is white people, do your ancestor work. Like it's like I hear so many times, oh, I have a complicated history with my ancestors. Oh, I don't want, y'all got to do the work. Like it's your ancestors that we are dealing with. So it's like deal with your shame, do whatever you got to do, your sorrow, your grieving that Loli talked about, and then be about the business of working with your ancestors. That's all I got to say.
I'd love to share too. So Amy, it's funny that you mentioned that because I forgot that the audience for Missing Witches is mostly white. I signed up for this because I wanted to talk to you all Black women again because I had fun last year. And I've been telling all my friends, I'm gonna go talk to some Black women today who are mystics and healers. And so I don't care what the audience, I don't do anything for white women, like literally nothing. It's a blessing to them to even be in on this conversation. Honestly, they could send all of us Venmos to even be here, to even be listening in. But I do want to comment on Thea and Lolly Moon. Okay, first of all, y'all are amazing. I feel like what you just shared with us is worth like, I mean, like seriously, like that was wisdom. That was like deep cosmic wisdom that you both shared. And what we need for like literally medicine for today. And like white women listening to this, feel free to Venmo both of them $100 because like that was legit. And what's so interesting to me is like I'm not as connected to the astrology world just as intimately as you are. But everything you said is like vibing exactly with what I think the Black Madonna has been saying to me. And so just to have that alignment feels so powerful because I've been thinking about that Black Madonna who, like, while breastfeeding, was catching cannonballs. And my first thought was, before we even join in the fight, we build a monument. What are the cannonballs she's already caught for us? How can we gather the 40 of those and put them in our altar so we can be reminded? Like these these resilience practices, these resilience rituals, right? Before we even turn to the battle, what has she already done for us that we can ritualize and say every single day I can go to this and be like, here are the 40 cannonballs she has already caught for me before I even try to trust her to catch more. But then the second piece I was thinking of, the step two, if you have to put it in a linear steps, is get that milk. She's breastfeeding. She's breastfeeding while she's catching the cannonballs. We don't even have to join in the fight. We need to get healed. We need to deal with our own trauma. We need to adjust to whatever the disillusionment, the disappointment. But both of those things are for our well-being, for our sustainability. And I think that's the resistance to the patriarchy, because patriarchy wants to have us, Thea, what you mentioned, that like flood the zone. Yeah, 100%. Constantly running, constantly scrambling. And if I'm sitting here building a monument with the cannonballs from the last war, I'm not running, but that energy is protecting me at the same time. And if I'm focused on getting that milk, my little nephew who's 4, he's always talking about milkies. He calls breast milkies, obsessed with milkies. And what's interesting to me is he's no longer breastfeeding because his mom actually has 2 more kids younger than him. So there's no milkies for him. But I have a bunch of nude images. I hired this watercolorist to make a series of nude watercolors of me when I turned 40. So I have a bunch of these watercolors. It's like a shrine to myself above my bed. And he comes in and is like, Auntie Nina, your milkies. And he's like obsessed with my milkies, right? Because he thinks that my milkies are available to him. But what I love is like, he does not need milk. He does not need milk physically. He needs milk because of the connection, the spiritual connection, right? He wants to be at his mom's milkies as a 4-year-old because it's the connection. It's the sustainable, it's the soothing, it's the, oh, everything's going to be okay. Breastfeeding is not physically efficient. It's just a few calories at a time, but I love it because I'm thinking of this metaphor. If I only get 10 calories at a time from the Black Madonna, that means I have to keep coming back every hour, just like babies do. I can't just, she's not passing out protein bars. She's passing out milk. So keep coming. I can't just take one and be like, see you tomorrow. I have to take a sip and be like, I'll be back in 45 minutes because I need to be reminded again of your truth, your wisdom, your healing, all those things. And so I'm like, let's just go back to infancy, you know? And that also gives us freedom to not be the mule. Like I'm just over here getting at my milkies, my cosmic milkies, and collecting the cannonballs that have already been caught and building a monument to them so that I can remind myself that I'm held, I'm safe, I'm protected, I'm not a mule. I can dream, all these things. And so, white women, you're welcome for listening to that.
You are welcome. And I love this idea of like returning to infancy, not to infantilize yourself, but to do that thing that you're talking about of like, I am allowed to receive. I don't have to be in charge of this. I don't have to be in charge of that. I can take on that like breastfeeding energy of just being given that energy. Does anyone want to add something or respond before we start sharing our Venmos?
I listen. I was around my really good friend and herbalist. Her name is Angela Highsmith this morning, and she said to me, "Thea, nothing." Maybe she was quoting someone. Nothing in nature gives more than it receives. And I was like, "Please say it again." And this idea of nourishment and going to where the nourishment is, oof.
This is the revolutionary dream, right? Lilith Dorsey, how can our listeners and the world at large best support you? Please feel free to share your Venmo. Obviously, you are a prolific author. Go buy the books. And I've said this before, y'all, it's great if you read them, but buy them. Buy them because Lilith is going to get that royalty check whether you read the book or not. So let's celebrate Black History Month by
Yeah, right.
Venmoing, buying books, all
All
that.
$1.10 I get from each book. I mean, I ain't getting rich off of that.
Yeah, Venmo
Yeah.
Venmo is better. Venmo is better.
Yeah,
But...
right. I'm Lilith Dorsey everywhere. Lilith Dorsey. But yeah, check out my website, my YouTube, all of those things. There's lots of content. You're right. I am prolific. There's 800 posts on my blog, Voodoo Universe. There's a lot out there. And my pronouns are they, them, and tired. So there you go.
Hopefully that we can bring some of that restorative infant energy to your year this year.
I love it. I love it. I need it.
Yeah, may it be so. Dr. Beverly, what's your Venmo?
Okay, my Venmo is my Burning Man name. They call me Miss Jackson. That's a long story, all right? But it's at, and this is all one word, Miss Jackson, if ya nasty. Miss Jackson, if YA nasty. That's my Venmo handle. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you were like, took a big breath in, and then it just became a smile, which is also a message to the universe. Lolly Moon, how can these people pay you to be who you are?
Well, you can find me on Instagram while it's still available for free. Use the internet while it's still free. That's a message.
Mhm.
You can find me on Instagram at Mystic Me Medicine. You can find me privately sharing information about the planetary hours and all things the craft through patreon.com/Loli Moon. That is where I have the Mystic Mothership, which is a open portal for the Black Madonna, where all of her wisdom is poured into me and poured into all the mystics that connect with me there. And thank you in advance.
The
For me, I'm on Instagram at Thea Astrology. Um, I am one third of a podcast called Down to Astro. Please check it out. Book a reading with me. I give those typically on Fridays. But also support the work. I have um, I know this isn't quite what you asked for. You asked for Venmo, but support the work, which is I have a piece that's out in the Celestial Arts Education Library Institute. They have a journal, and I've written a piece that's only in hard copy, and it's about the astrology of convict leasing, where I grew up in Texas, so Sugar Land, Texas specifically, and I want to share more of that work. Um, yeah, give
Christina
more
Cleveland.
practitioners.
Yeah. Christina.
Sorry, I was trying to join Lovely Moon's Patreon.
Yeah.
I realized it's MUVA. That's why I was like, okay, in mothership. Okay, cool. I'm there. I found it. Um, so I'm Christina. Yeah. So yeah, I have Patreon too. We're actually like doing a series this year on restoring justice with the Black Madonna. And so yeah, come on, join me at Patreon. Um, and I'm yeah, that'll go in those show notes, I'm guessing. So yeah, it's just Patreon at CS Cleve. CS Cleve is how you can find me. And also, if you are available in April and May, I'm taking people to the Black Madonnas of Paris, and we still have a couple spots left. We're doing a trip just for Black folks. That's April 28th through May 4th. And then we're doing a trip for people of all races from May 7th through 13th. And we're going to go see Our Lady of Fuck Around and Find Out. We're going to see Our Lady of Miracles, who's the Black Madonna that Joan of Arc was deeply devoted to. We're also going to see Our Lady of Peace. And lastly, we're going to see, the Our Lady of the Underworld. And so it's super fun. We went last year and had a blast. And so we're doing it. And this year it's like, yeah, just Paris plus Black Madonna plus beautiful people. Can't lose. So yeah, those are some ways to connect. I also have a monthly Black Madonna community circle that's on Zoom and free, open to everybody. That's super fun. You can go to my website, ChristinaCleveland.com, to get connected to that group as well. And we're
And
starting a Black Madonna school this year. So just get on my email list and you'll learn all about how to get free with the Black Madonna and others.
and when is your next book coming out?
Summer 2026. Working on it now,
Summer?
but
Did you say summer 20?
yeah, summer 2026. Yeah.
So we'll keep our eyes open for that, and you'll come back on the
Yeah.
show to talk
That would
more
be
at
super
length.
fun. Yeah. About liberation or whatever I'm calling it in the summer 2026.
Title TBD.
Yeah, I mean it's always TBD anyway, as you know. Like I'm like in my head, this is what it is, but then marketing's like that's not what it is.
And I do want to say Zoe Flowers just lost an opportunity because DEI is being ravaged in the United States. So holler at your Venmo, Zoe Flowers, because fuck's sake.
Yeah, that happened. So my Venmo is Soul Requirements, and it's at SOU-REQUI-1. I'm still on Instagram for the time being, and it's just I am Zoe Flowers, just I, the letter A M, Zoe Flowers. And because of that federal cut, my Principles of Ritual class that I was going to roll out on February 1st, it's pushed back until March now, and my Intuitive Tarot class, because I have to cram 6 months of work to the government by next month. So more time for people if you want to sign up for my tarot class or my Principles of Ritual class that'll be coming out in March. So
Thank you all so much. I know a bunch of you have hard outs like right now, so I'm not going to ramble on too much. But I want to say thank you so much. I hope that this will be like a fruitful conversation for the six of you going forward without me. And I do, of course, encourage you to connect with each other. You definitely don't need me as a liaison, but I am so happy to have been able to facilitate some of you meeting each other. Again, celebrate Black history by fucking paying Black women. Let's just leave it at that. And thank you all, and blessed fucking be.
thank you.
Thank you.
You must be a witch.
If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, join the coven. Find out how at missingwitches.com, or buy our books, New Moon Magic and Missing Witches, and check out our deck of oracles, the Missing Witches deck of oracles.